I feel like we're also going to talk about Tyrese and Scrappy in this live because if we're going to talk about dumb shit, we might as well talk about some dumb shit, okay? Before we actually get into that though, if this is for the somewhat intellectual folk, okay, you know what I'm saying? That's what I would like for this to be for, the somewhat intellectual folk, you know what I'm saying? We can drift back and forth. We love ignorant shit, but at the same time, we read books. Okay, shout out to y'all. And this is not to shame anybody. This is not to shame anybody, okay? This is just me, and I need to create something for myself. So that's what this is, okay? Everything is always an extension of Bondi Blue because that's who I am, okay? So it's just another Bondi Blue show, but this is a certain segment, all right? I also I want to tell you, I love the Daily Show. I love that show on Max. What's her name? Amber? Is it Amber? The black lady that used to have her own show, and now she on the show with a whole bunch of other people ran by a black dude, and it's hilarious. And I can't remember the name, but me and Lyric watch it every week. That's how shit be in my household. You just watch it, don't remember the name of nothing. But y'all, I love Audible, right? I want Audible to give me a deal. Audible, can you call? Do I have to call you, Audible? I want a deal, okay? They just put up that they have a new Audible original called Stranded with Tracy Ellis Ross and Taraji P. Henson. I'm definitely gonna be listening to that when I'm tired of being depressed by the hard hitting stuff I've been reading lately. So I don't know about y'all. Amber Ruffin, thank you, I love Amber Ruffin. She's hilarious. So I hope some of my prep girls come into the room, right? Because I know a lot of my prep girls, a lot of people that know me in real life watch me but don't really say anything. And every now and again, they might jump out and say, what's up? But ultimately, a lot of times, they don't really say nothing. But shout out to my prep girls. Because on our high school reading list, and I've discussed this with y'all in my members only live, the reading list at Xavier Preparatory High School in 2002, 3, around that time, early 2000s, was some real crucial, hard ass shit, man, for lack of a better term. Okay. There were 2 books that we read in high school that have stuck with me for a long time. Go Ask Alice by Anonymous, which is still a bestseller today. And a book called The Child Called It. Now, when I tell you I will never reread The Child Called It again, I feel like I want to go reread Go Ask Alice. But I will never read The Child Called It again. It literally was one of the most, for lack of a better term, less than 7 minutes in my video. Please support the channel. It was one of the most fucked up things I think I'd ever read. Child Called It was about the middle child being abused while the other children were not. And I mean, Black people, you and I will understand this. There's literally a part in the book where the mom has the middle son who she's abusing, the child called It. The mom is the abusive person. The father is just sitting there doing nothing most of the time, okay? Ignoring the abuse, allowing it to happen. So the mom has the little boy clean the bathroom in the basement, which is not well ventilated. And y'all know back in the day, you cleaning your bathroom was you basically damn near dying from inhaling a mix of chemicals, bleach, and all kind of shit, right? So she has him cleaning the bathroom and she locks him in the bathroom to the point that he literally is passing out, like in the bathroom from inhaling the fumes from cleaning the bathroom. I remember one of the last things that happened was she shot him. She shot her fucking middle schooler. Like, it was crazy. Yes, mixing bleach and ammonia. Yes. So a lot of y'all have read A Child Called It. So, like, please understand, our reading list in high school was not for the faint of heart. And I feel like when I think about that in retrospect, especially with how a lot of us were being abused, if not at home, a lot of us were being abused at this school. And I say that because I feel like when you are constantly walking on eggshells for fear that you've done something wrong, even though you don't know what you like, you don't even know what can come around the corner, and you're now in deep trouble over something you had no idea you did. This was not just happening to me at Xavier Preparatory School. I did a whole video about it. But when I really think about it, it was a lot of fear mongering. And I don't know if any of us have ever like really thought about how much fear we lived in as kids. If not for response from your parents, family members, other kids, New Orleans is a very violent place. Um, and I feel like even with all of the drinking and having a good time, people speak harshly, people fight for nothing, people kill for nothing. It's just a very violent place to grow up. And I feel like that has a lot to do with the fact that it's a port city. And because a lot of crazy things happen in port cities. And also the fact that, historically, Louisiana, New Orleans specifically, was a landmass that wasn't really seen as suitable. It's the swamp. The water comes in at some point of the year when the hurricanes happen and it floods everything. We decided, you know what? We're going to build a city right there. A lot of early Americans really love to build against what is good for the environment, like what is good for the land. They don't like to build in accordance with nature. They like to build against it, as to constantly be fighting with it. You know what I'm saying? The idea of putting concrete on the land so that you constantly see the grass popping up through the concrete, because nature is always trying to take over, because this is nature. And humans just keep putting cement on top of the shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the concept of how New Orleans was basically built, which is why the streets are so fucked up and the infrastructure is so bad and the water is so bad. Is because they literally ignored the setting of New Orleans, the swamp, the way the land sinks, all of that. They ignored all of that and built this place. Well, who are you going to get to build this place besides the slaves? Because it's not just the slaves that built this place, because New Orleans is so old, it might have like earlier settlership was more than just slaves. It was also people from prisons from England. England sent all of its prisoners to the States and to some of these areas in order to build them. Not gonna send no real, colonists that, we feel are hardworking Americans. No, we're not gonna send them. We're gonna send the degenerates. We're gonna send the people who we've imprisoned, and we're gonna put them in extreme, harsh state where they're gonna build this place up. And what happens after they build the place? They end up staying. And their line just keeps going and keep going. Now you add in slavery on top of that. This is a place full of fucked up, angry people. Then you add the mixing of DNA that is not good. And I talked about this because, this is what I've understood to be the case based on science. I could be wrong because I have not researched this in a long time. But from my understanding, when you have children with your family members, meaning when y'all have too many similar strands of DNA and y'all have a child together, it will cause damage to the chromosomes and the child will come out with some type of disability. Okay. So because of the way racism works, let's keep white in the family. Don't mix with anybody else. And also because of the way we always want to keep wealth within a family, we don't want to give it to anybody else. We want to hoard the wealth. People were consistently having children with family members. At first, they would start out with your far cousins and all of that type of shit. But essentially, sometimes people were absolutely having children with their family members that they shared too many identical chromosomes with. And then we get a population of people that are not quite right. You know what I'm saying? So you get your not quite right people. You got your people that came from prisons in other countries. You got people in terrible conditions. It's hot, it's muggy, it's nasty, the mosquitoes, like all of these things. Why do you think we drink so much? Why do you think the people down here have to party all of the time? Okay? Because you have to offset for how terrible shit can be. Okay? So when I think about all of that and how a lot of us are so violent. And this is probably the first generation, second generation of people trying to like unwind their minds from some of the things that cause us pain, that cause us strife. You know what I'm saying? Like, apparently looking inward has never been popular. America has never wanted you to be introspective. And if being introspective was a part of anything, they didn't want you to do that. They didn't want you to look within. You look within, you start to figure shit out, and you no longer buy into a system of capitalism that requires you to constantly be buying shit in order to feel good about who you are. So, again, all of that in mind, New Orleans people are harsh. And so we're all in school being oppressed because we're in a Catholic all girls school. Okay. So if you gay, they hate you. If you fast, they hate you. If you're not a straight A student telling on everybody, you are usually constantly being kind of fucked with by the administration. That's what was going on as far as I was concerned when I was at prep. I knew girls who were really doing nothing wrong, but just being teenage girls. Black Planet was a thing back then. I remember a girl got kicked out of school because of her Black Planet page. Like, and even back then, I remember thinking to myself, it's insane how much y'all will ruin Black girls in a all girls Catholic school. They were so willing to ruin our educations over stupid things or things that didn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. And in the largeness of life, you cannot control who adults have sex with. Once a child becomes an adult, nobody's gonna have control over whether that child is gay or that adult become, is gay or straight. You're at some point, an adult is either going to do what they want to do and lie about it, or they're going to do what they want to do and tell the truth about it. But at the end of the day, an adult is going to do what they want to do as far as sex is concerned. The idea that they were always so willing to throw us out of school and ruin our educational reputations, because it was hard to get into other schools after you got kicked out of one school. And they were kicking a lot of us out. They were kicking a lot of us out of school. Like, just fuck these Black girls' education. And so when I think about that part, and then I think about some of the books we read, I'm wondering if all of the fear mongering was intentional. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like reading books like The Child Called It, reading books like Go Ask Alice were fear-mongering to control us. And it wasn't working. And I am just now realizing at 36 that Go Ask Alice was really not just a book about a teenager that got hooked on LSD. Somebody gave her drugs gave her drugs. She didn't even want the drugs. Somebody snuck the drugs in some food or some Coke, some Coca-Cola, put some LSD in some Coca-Cola or some shit like that. And now she's addicted to drugs for the rest of the damn book, right? And what I did not realize is it really was about a teenager who's depressed because it's the 70s or maybe the late 60s. And I'm gay. A lot of Go Ask Alice talks about Alice not really being that interested in boys, but mostly having sex with them while on drugs. And then feeling a way about her female friends and knowing that it was bad and guilting and shaming herself internally about it. And so when we have these conversations on my platform and I talk about the homophobia, or I talk about how some of these conservative Black ideals are harmful, because people seem to not understand that Black people are conservative. Most of us grew up in conservative households, which is why the idea that we're voting, the Dems and all of the bullshit that people say about why Black people vote Democratic. Black people vote Democratic because Republicans vote racist. That is the only reason that a lot of Black people do not vote conservative, because most of them have conservative ideals, because most of them have grown up or been connected somehow to the church. Everybody, white and Black and Asian and Latino people, have the common thread of their religions that have caused their social biases connecting them. Okay? So the white kids are going through it, the Black kids are going through it, but they convince the Black kids that they're the only ones going through this shit. And it is the Black kids thing. But essentially, a lot of us as Black kids grew up in conservative households, depressed because we could not be ourselves. Go Ask Alice is literally a book that is about that without even realizing it. And it makes me wonder if the author was fighting her own sexual feelings about gayness. Beatrix Sparks is the author of Go Ask Alice. And I just finished reading Unmask Alice, which was written by, hold up, let me get it right, Eric. I want to get his name right, y'all. I don't want to just say people's names wrong. By Rick Emerson. Rick Emerson did a deep dive on the book Go Ask Alice and the original author Beatrix Sparks during COVID, y'all. The book is relatively new. Very, very new. All these years, I had no idea that Go Ask Alice was basically something that a woman wrote because she wanted to help the fear mongering going on at that time, and also battling her own demons. And I think the thing that I got from the book the most is how much conservative parents will look everywhere. They will look at Dungeons and Dragons games. They will look at kids wearing Black makeup. They'll look at the books you read, the rock music you listen to. They'll look at whether you're gay or not and try to find a reason for why their child isn't doing what they want them to do. They will look for all of these other reasons and cause this mass hysteria when ultimately your child is depressed. Your child might be gay and feel like they can't be gay because of the way society views gay people. A lot of Black kids are depressed simply because they understand what they're about to grow up into. We're constantly being told and prepared for what it is to be Black, how you're going to have to act. The girls, oh my God, as a young woman, don't be a whore, don't get pregnant, but also don't be gay. And you got a little boyfriend, and girl, the dick is so good. I don't understand how you can like women. The conflicting things, the conflicting ideals that are impressed upon us causes dysfunction and depression. And a lot of our parents were abusive. And even in 2024, a lot of y'all don't want to admit that to yourselves because you feel like your parents loved you, so it's not abuse. It had to look like a child called it in order for it to really be abuse. Peep. This is crazy. It's coming to me in a moment. It is coming to me in this moment that those books were given to us to read at such an influential time in our lives for specific reasons, to fearmonger us in one way or another, to control how we were going to grow up in one way or another. And to me, I often felt as a child that they were never focused on the things that were most important. They weren't focused on my grades or how good I did in school. Not my parents. I'm talking about the school. They weren't worried about that. They were worried about who's gay, what girls are, sleeping together or kissing, as if it matters. Two girls that I went to school with, okay, y'all know who y'all are. But there are two girls in my class that went together in high school. I think they got in trouble for getting caught kissing under the stairs. Fucking people are married to this day. To this day, them people are married and still together. I also know a lot of lesbians that I went to school with who've had children. trans men who have had children. So all of the fear mongering about gayness, once you become an adult, really starts to seem fucking stupid. And I feel like we could see that even back then, because you could see grown ass gay people making money, living their lives, and everybody's fine. Why are y'all tripping out about it like that? And it is because everybody is so brainwashed into the things that they've been told and that have been impressed upon them through religion that they don't even think about things critically anymore. And to me, reading Unmasked Alice was really about during the Nixon administration when they started the war on drugs. If y'all don't know, the reason why people went to jail in the 90s is, for drugs the way they did was because of Nixon's war on drugs that started in the 70s. So a lot of your family members were in jail for long extended periods of time, Black people, over drugs because somebody decided that they needed to have something or somebody to go after and blame for the world's issues. People could not control their children. Times were changing. Psychology had not really come to the forefront as much. So a lot of kids were bipolar. A lot of kids were having a hard time living in a world that they felt like did not reflect how they felt about themselves or what they wanted to see. That caused a lot of issues. So instead of realizing that a lot of the conservative mindsets caused a lot of oppression, that caused a lot of depression, instead of recognizing that that was the reason why people was getting on drugs, because a lot of them grew up in households that were oppressive. They could not grow and figure out who they wanted to be because somebody was always beating it into them that they needed to be like this. It is what it is. And so when the kids are having these issues of getting on drugs or partying, now the government and the parents are, what are we going to do? The government does research on LSD, on marijuana. All of it says it's relatively harmless. Like it doesn't do any, real damage like heroin or cocaine or meth. And they still decide to group all of it together so that we can have the war on drugs, so that we can go and arrest the others. Because we're the good people and everybody else are the others. So we have to go and get the other people. Who are the others? The Black people, the brown people, the Asian people that are just now coming into America during this time. The Vietnam War is going on. So now the people who are trying to be free thinkers, who are trying to go into the future, who are trying to be progressive, are seen as the others. You're jazz musicians. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people had FBI, CIA shit going on. You find out Billie Holiday, a lot of these people were harassed by the government. And it is because the government wanted so badly to stop the progression that was happening that was going to make things more equitable. The same thing that's happening right now. The exact same thing that's happening right now. It is literally a pattern that we seem to keep going through over and over and over again, where people romanticize conservatism and family values when really you don't value family, because if you did, you wouldn't be voting against people getting aid for families. You wouldn't be voting against the children getting free lunches. You wouldn't be voting against the young girls who do get pregnant getting care for their pregnancies. You wouldn't be voting against all of that if you actually cared about the health of a family. But that's not what it's really about. And so when we have these conversations, even in, with the manosphere shit, it's all the same bullshit. Just take piece here, take a piece here, take a piece here. And that's the reason why y'all don't want to be traditional, trad wives, conservatism. When really all of that is to keep everybody under somebody else's control. Even people on social media, y'all are in the comments a lot of the time so upset because you can't control anything in your own life. So you want to be able to control people on social media. And you really can't. And it's crazy that you try. But essentially it's because you have no control in your own life. So when we get into the Trump shit and the conservatism, the reason why I feel the way I feel about it is deeply rooted, deeply read, deeply educated, and not on no leftist bullshit. Because essentially, most of us are not really as liberal or leftist as you think we are. We just don't like seeing cycles repeated. We don't like people having less rights than they had when we came into the world. We don't like historically knowing that what Trump is doing right now is very reminiscent of what Hitler did when he took over Germany. However, we know that the people that are actually going to be harmed the worst are going to be the poor people, whether they are white or black, Latino, regardless. The poor people are going to be hurt. The disabled are going to be hurt. The black people are going to be hurt. The brown people are going to be hurt. Those are the people that are going to be most hurt by this administration. That's just a fact. That's just a fact, y'all. It doesn't matter what y'all are talking about. It is the fact of the situation that those are the people that are going to get harmed when this administration does one or two things or both. They do nothing or they make shit worse. They're either going to do nothing or they're going to make shit worse. So that brings me to the dumb shit.
Of Justice to pursue federal civil rights cases against schools that continue to engage in racial discrimination and schools that persist in explicit unlawful discrimination under the guise of equity will not only have their endowments taxed, but through budget reconciliation, I will advance a measure to have them fined up to the entire amount of their endowment. A portion of the seized funds will then be used as restitution for victims of these illegal and unjust policies that hurt our country so badly. Colleges have gotten hundreds of billions of dollars from hardworking taxpayers, and now we are going to get this anti-American insanity out of our institutions once and for all. We are going to have real education in America. Thank you. Furthermore, I will direct the Department of Justice to pursue federal civil.
Okay. So, in case that was hard for y'all to understand, it seems to me as if President Trump, once he becomes president again, wants to go specifically after higher education. And I am wondering if he's talking about HBCUs and talking about DWIs that are incentivized to have a certain quota of other ethnicities admitted into the school. So for instance, Ivy League like Harvard may have to have a certain number of Black students, Asian students, Latino students that are brought in every year, right? Trump and them are calling that discrimination because there is something that says y'all have to have a certain amount or a certain percentage of other ethnicities. That was done because prior to the civil rights movement, white people would basically just not let your ass in. They would make up reasons for why you weren't qualified, for why you couldn't get in, and then they just wouldn't let you in. And it would just be all white people, kind of like Trump's cabinet. And so now what they're saying is not only are they going to get rid of those initiatives, but they're going to tax any schools that fight against him, any schools that say, no, we're going to keep our, equity incentives. We're going to keep it. Oh, no. Well, now we're going to tax you and charge you for it. Now we're going to charge you for allowing other ethnicities to come to the school. I hope y'all understand that. So that means for all of y'all who have kids that want to go to college, and this is how you know, like a lot of his base are white people. I'm not blaming Black people for this because I feel like this is white people's fault. Okay. And a lot of them don't care about this type of shit. They don't care because they're the white ones. So they're the ones who are going to get reparations because Brad's stupid ass wasn't allowed to get into the school, even though he didn't have the grades over Keisha. Keisha had the grades, but you know, Brad's parents are really mad because he's a legacy and they won't let him in because he doesn't have the grades. That's another thing. If they were going to make laws against DEI and equity, they need to make laws against nepotism as well, because most of them got into schools because of who they know. And that's what they want. Trump's presidency is about elbow rubbing with who you know. It's about not actually having to provide the stats, the numbers, the grades, the history. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to actually provide your experience. Even his cabinet, no experience needed. Just kiss my ass hard enough and I will get you the job. And I don't know about you, but I worked at a local news station and I noticed that that's how the local news station worked as well. Like they kept us who worked hard, and the ones who worked really hard, they were usually called every time somebody called out. Every time they need somebody to fill a spot, they're going to call the hardworking people who they know are going to get the job done. They're going to call them to be overworked. But then they're going to keep promoting the people who aren't working as well, but they're just sucking a lot of dick and kissing a lot of ass. I've grown to detest that way of being, because what ends up happening is I have a boss that doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about, but wants to have speeches and shit that keep me from doing the work that I need to get done. So when it's not done, you're going to blame me, but you got me sitting here in a fucking meeting talking to me about nothing. So you see how that like trickled down, that mentality. So that's what he's doing. He's doing that with the cabinet, and now he's putting that in the educational institutions. Another thing is that y'all know the Republicans period have been pushing this whole, you know, whitewashing of history, but y'all know they've been doing that, right? Y'all know we're constantly finding out, just like we found out in Unmasked Alice, that y'all have been allowed to lie about any and everything for so long. Like, what the fuck is the truth? And that's another thing about all of this in Trump that exhausts me. And I think that this is what the Obamas were talking about. You remember that Netflix movie that the Obamas came out with? And it basically said that America would just basically disintegrate because it would eventually infight itself to death. Like, you know, things were flying from the sky saying that, oh, this country did it or this country did it. So now we can't trust each other at all. Now we're killing each other because we don't know who we can trust. And the truth is no longer the truth. Truth is a lie, and a lie is the truth. So that's why a lot of this stresses me to fuck out, because I can see where it can go.